Hello everybody, this is my video about the second Etude for ATSSB all region auditions in Texas on, I believe, year C. This is Etude number 5 out of the Weissenborn Volume 2 Practical Studies, or melodic, whatever it is. Melodic studies? Daily study, whatever it is. I promise this is the right one. So, things to be aware of. Most of what I think about when I look at Etude number 5 is related to articulation. That means the specific length of every note that you play and how those notes differ. We have several different articulations that are marked in this piece, and the recommended tempo of 120 to 126 makes this pretty challenging. 120 to 126 is right on the border of where you might switch between single tongue and double tongue. So we'll talk about single tongue and double tongue in a minute, but first let's talk about expressive articulation. So we have three main kinds of articulation. We've got the marcato, which is often called a caret. That, because it looks like a carrot. It's like a little triangle or a TP that sits on top of your note. Usually, that articulation means it's kind of like, it's shorter and it's also kind of accented. So like an accented staccato. The next thing that I see is actually a staccato, which hopefully you're familiar with. We have the first measure has both a marcato and staccato notes. So staccato just means short. And when I think staccato, I think something that's really light. We don't want to make it super accenty. We just want it to be short and light. The third articulation that we're going to talk about is an accent. That's this one right here. So an accent is, it looks like this right here, and that means that the beginning of the note is going to be the loudest part of the note, and it's probably going to be louder than the other notes around it as well. When we play a note that's accented, it's going to be a little shorter than full value, but not as short as it would be with either a staccato or a marcato. Now, if you look at the second page of this etude, originally, this etude is written on 2 pages. If yours is not, I'm sorry, I scared you, but I'm looking at the 4th line of the piece, measure 31. We have a measure that includes accents and staccatos on the same note. So what does that mean? The way I'm interpreting that is that the notes are going to be a little bit louder, and they're going to be shorter than they would be if they were just accented, but not as short as they would be if there was just a staccato on them. At this tempo, it's really difficult to do very clear differences between them. So once you start to get your tempo close to 120, what you're going to end up with is the accent means you're going to give the note more air and not worry about making it too short. The staccato means you're going to keep your articulation very light. You're not going to throw too much air at those notes. And the marcato, which is like the caret, means that that's going to be your short note. I would encourage you, when you're playing your accents and you're trying to push more air, it's a better practice if your stomach pushes out as you're using more air. Instead of sucking in, push it out. This will give you a much better support, and it will also keep you better in tune. Now, I said we were going to talk about double tongue. I don't think it's necessary for this piece at this tempo, but if you can double tongue, this is a good time to do it. You should know that double tonguing is a technique that is much easier to execute on instruments like flute and trumpet because they don't have the reed inside their mouth. When we double tongue, what we're doing is using different parts of our tongue to interrupt the airstream. So when you normally articulate, we often talk about using a ta or a da. What you're doing when you're saying either of those syllables, just try it once, ta, is the tongue is hitting the roof of your mouth ta. And when you build up air behind your tongue, when you release your tongue from the roof of the mouth, the air comes out. When you are articulating using a ta syllable on a double reed, your tongue is hitting the reed, ta, instead of the roof of your mouth. And when you release your tongue from the reed, you get a sound. Try it. Try just playing a couple notes. When you are double tonguing, you are alternating that ta syllable with a ka syllable or a gu syllable. The difference between ta and ka is that when you say ka, the back of your tongue is closing off the back of your throat, and that is stopping the air from even reaching your reed. So when you're saying ka, your tongue is not touching the reed. The interruption of the reed is stopped because there's not any more air hitting the reed. So there are a few ways to learn this. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but probably the fastest way to do it. And keep in mind, double tonguing is a lot easier if you're playing higher notes. So if you're playing notes below the staff, it's going to be pretty challenging. What I would recommend you do is set up your tempo. Let's say we're shooting for 126. And I'm just going to look at measure 5 because that seems like notes that would be okay. I'm only going to play the first 4 notes of measure 5. And you keep going until you hear your articulation even out. The enemy, when you are trying to learn how to tongue notes faster, regardless of single tongue or double tongue, is tension in your tongue. If you notice your tongue is getting tense, you are going to lose control. Likewise with your fingers. If you're playing this piece and you feel your fingers tensing up on you, you're going to lose control over what you're doing. You will not be able to move your fingers as quickly as you'd be able to if they were relaxed, which means that my advice to you as you are learning number 5 is do not play this etude faster than you are ready to play it. It also will sound good at a slower tempo. If I were your judge, I would much rather hear you playing this piece cleanly with differences in articulation and a good sound than if you were playing it at tempo and sloppy. Play it clean. That's always going to be the judge's preference for this etude. Also be aware that if you are in a room with other people that are auditioning the same time as you, once you're in the competition room, you will perceive that the other people are playing faster than they are and that you are playing slower than you are. This is just our instinctive fight or flight response kicking in. So don't go into the room trying to play this better than you've ever played it in your life. Go into the audition room and try to play it the way that it's been going in your practice sessions. All right, so keep tension out of your fingers, keep tension out of your tongue. If you want to learn how to double tongue, this is one approach to do it. I don't think you need to double tongue this piece. I'm going to try to play it for you. Before we go on, a few enharmonic spellings. So we have some notes with sharps in front of them. Many bassoonists are not used to thinking about notes in terms of sharps. So there are a few tricky ones, and they seem to all be on or after the 4th line of the piece. So G sharp is the same note as A flat. E sharp is the same note as F natural. D sharp is the same note as E flat. C sharp, I believe you can understand how to do. B sharp is not the same note as C flat, it is the same note as C natural. And A sharp is the same note as B flat. All right, I am going to play this for you. I'm going to do it at 120. Wish me luck. Here we go. All right, there you go. Good luck.